All right, so we're taking a look at this article from ZDNet.com that says Office 365 outage with rollback failure ends after more than 6 hours. And this is something that, as the time we're recording this, we're actually still kind of experiencing some of this. And I know Don and I were talking, we both saw some things last night that seemed a little weird and then saw the news coming out. So Don, can you give us a little bit of a recap of what's going on?
Sure. So I noticed it the same way you did, Peter, which is when I got home last night, my Outlook on my cell phone was no longer able to access my account. And I use multi-factor authentication, and every 60 days I have to re-enter my password. So I assume that's what it was. But once I provided the password, that wasn't working. And even the authentication mechanism was kind of broken. It was trying to download an authentication file. So there were issues. It seemed to be a small thing. So Microsoft was attributing it to some Azure Active Directory outages. But then it kind of extended out. And Azure Active Directory is super important to all of Microsoft services. And so we started seeing outages that extended into Microsoft 365 and that whole platform, which is, of course, where my email happens to live. So that went on for about 6 hours. They thought they identified the problem and rolled back some changes they had done that didn't fix the problem. So it turns out they weren't related. So then they had to go and keep exploring on it. After about 6 hours, they flagged it as resolved. So the problem had been solved, but there's still some performance issues that have been carrying over. So I think they have fixed the issue. It just takes a little while to shake out because of the way people cache authentication credentials and things of that nature. So where I thought it was going to be really cool today is that we've got Boss on here who does a lot of cloud design. And we know that no cloud provider is perfect, right? That everybody has outages. So as a outsider, if you're a company that's using Office 365 or Microsoft 365, or if you're just using Azure Active Directory or whatever, how do you design for outages like this? How do you plan for some of these things to be a little more resilient? I know there's a ton of features, but how do we take advantage of those?
Sure, yeah, it was very unfortunate what happened, of course. I think the difficulty here is that it was one of the major Microsoft services, so this really isn't something that the customer per se can control themselves, or in most cases not anyway. But when it comes to cloud design, of course, you have multiple ways to design your deployments over perhaps even multiple clouds. But even if you look at Azure, for example, you can work with availability sets, availability zones, fault and update domains, multiple regions even, and so on and so forth. And I think that's probably one of the most important things to at least have a look at when you start designing whatever solution it may be within, let's say, Azure. If you don't do that, you're destined to fail. Like they say sometimes, one is none. Always work in pairs. Look at multiple regions. Make sure that updating one machine doesn't affect any of your other machines with fault and update domains, things like that. And if you know about these concepts, they're relatively easy to configure within the, in this case, the Azure Portal as well. So that can definitely help save you a lot of trouble when these types of issues occur. But of course, in this particular case, it was so big. One of Microsoft's main services, will be hard to work around something like this. It's hard to predict as well, of course. So just bad luck for Microsoft, but unfortunately, this is also part of the the cloud experience. You could say, however bad that may sound.
So Don, I want to clarify something you said earlier. So you said they realized it wasn't because of the new update they had that they then rolled back. And I read early on, I think that they said it didn't seem to be any malicious activity or a hack or anything like that. Have they said though what the problem was specifically then?
Nothing I've read has indicated what the problem was yet. They had recently rolled out some changes. They've been rolling out changes like crazy. If you look at Microsoft Teams and how it's changed during the pandemic, in the last 6 months, that software has seen so much development, it is ridiculous. So they've been rolling out changes pretty frequently. So what they did is they just said, here's these 3 changes that we made today. Let's roll these back. And then that failed to solve the problem. And they apparently was somehow tangentially attached to the problem. So they thought it might work, but they just couldn't tell until they rolled it back. And once they had it, didn't work. So then you have to remember, Microsoft has some of the most skilled and well-trained software engineers and infrastructure engineers on the planet, that are running these huge data centers. So they just dove in and fixed it. I'm sure we'll get a report out of it before long what happened. But it could be as simple as some kind of certificate that was responsible for Active Directory replication expired, and it just took a while to hunt it down. Like those things happen pretty frequently these days.
Or Daniel doing some red team stuff, possibly.
If you enjoyed that segment, be sure to check out our entire podcast available in the playlist right here. And you can always subscribe to stay up to date with the latest tech news and other happenings in the IT world. Be sure to tune in every Thursday for new episodes. I hope to see you there.